So this is my League One predictions for the 26-27 season. I'm going to do the full table of my predictions from 24th up to first. So let's get started. Let's get into this. I'm going to attempt to do this. I always find this a really hard league to predict, but it's just a bit of fun, really. Just something to look back on at the end of the season. And this is just my honest thoughts and predictions of what I think might happen this season. So starting with 24th. I've put AFC Wimbledon. Now, last season, after coming back up, started fantastic. First half of the season, right up amongst the top half. But what worries me is the fall off in the second half of the season. I think the form in the second half of the season was really not good, especially compared to the first half of the season, and they dragged themselves down into the relegation battle. Only just survived right at the end last season. I'm not writing them off. I think definitely not writing anyone off. It was a tough prediction. Someone had to go 24th, and I think it's almost like they got figured out halfway through last season. The results really started to turn the wrong way for them, and I think they nearly got dragged into it last season. I think this season they might be one of the ones that goes, unfortunately. 23rd place, I put Bromley. I find Bromley a hard team to predict. Last season, fantastic, winning League Two, really, really impressive. I've been really impressed with how quickly they've reached this level after finally getting to the Football League. Only taken them 2 seasons to get themselves up. So, impressive stuff. But this is, of course, a big step up. This is, of course, they're inexperienced at this level, which I think is a bit of a worry. Teams coming up to League One, it can go one or two ways. Some teams really kick on and do really well. Other teams just can't hack it. I'm not sure what way it's going to go at Bromley. I think, in the end, I've gone for them to just fall short. I think they could survive. It's going to be very tight. I think this league next season. I think Adebayo is a really good signing as a centre forward. I think it's a good signing. Other than that, I think they've been a bit limited in how much they can spend compared to other teams, mainly because of the size of the club. I mean, it's hard to call, but I think they come up, and I think whatever happens, I think they're going to give it a very good go. But I think might fall short in the end. 22nd place, I've gone for Burton Albion. I'm not confident about this one either. I think Burton are a hard team to predict as well. They've been in this league, I think this is their 9th season in this league, so they've been in this league a long time now, and they're hard to call because some years they're better, other years that they've almost gone down on quite a few occasions, and they seem to have a knack of always getting out of trouble. Last season they looked for a while like they could go down, and they got themselves out of it in the end. So and it just feels like quite often they're in the mix, quite often they end up pulling clear. It just feels like they're one of those teams that could eventually go. So I have gone for them to finish 22nd. The 21st position I think was a really hard one. I think there's a lot of teams that I think are going to be in the mix. In the end though, this might come as a bit of a surprise, but and I like this team as well, so I don't want them. I hope I'm wrong, but I put Peterborough. Peterborough last season weren't far off of this point. They were 18th, and things have really declined over the last few years. They've become a real selling club. They develop players really well, young players really well, particularly young forwards. You think of the amount of players that started their career at Peterborough that have been sold on and have gone on to have really successful careers. But I think, just to name a few that come to mind, Ivan Toney, Clark Harris, players like that. But I think at the end of the day, they've become a selling club. A lot of these young talents get sold on, and I think they're in a position now where it's caught up with them because defensively they've never been that great over recent years, and it's a young team still. There's a chance that they could have someone else come through and come out of nowhere and be good for them. That's worked for them in the past. But the other thing that worries me as well is Darren Ferguson not being there anymore. I think he was so good for this club, done great things, and the form got poor last season, and he, as a result, left. And I think it's going to be unusual having the full season without him there, and I do worry for them a bit. I think the players they've lost over recent years, the decline in form over recent years, now without the manager as well, they just don't look like the team they was a few years ago, unfortunately, and I'm just not sure I see them pushing on much more than just surviving, and I've got a feeling they might be one of the teams that goes next season. 20th place, just surviving. I've gone for Cambridge United. Now, Cambridge come back up last season, and I think a lot of people's one of the favourites to go down. I think a lot of people were predicting them to go down. The reason I think they're going to survive is Neil Harris as the manager. I really rate him. I really like him. I think he's a really underrated manager. I think he's, for this level, he's a top manager for this level, and I think he'll keep them up. I think people ask questions about Cambridge. Not got the biggest. I think the transfers. People's maybe not be so convinced. Maybe people think they might fall short again like last time. But I think what has important is Neil Harris was brought in midway through the season where they already looked like they were dead and buried last time out in League One, and he did improve the form a bit. And first time I've asked him, last season was a lot of people thought it'd be a tough season for him, got him straight back up. I think he'll be the difference for them next season. It's going to be a tight season. It's going to be a relegation battle, but I think Neil Harris will find a way to keep Cambridge in League One. 19th place now, put Leyton Orient. I hope Leyton Orient survive. I like the club. I think relegation could really hit them hard financially. If you remember what happened when they went down from League One before, I think they've really fallen off from when they was in the playoff final a couple of years ago. And last season was a disaster. They only survived on the final day. One result, only one result in it in the end. And I think for that reason I do worry for them. I also worry for them because again they've become a selling club as well. Another one of those teams that they seem to be selling on a lot of their best players and just not replacing them. Only 3 transfers coming in this window. I'm not convinced, to be perfectly honest. I can see why a lot of people predict them to go down. I think they'll just have enough, but I can see why people are predicting them to go. I think, losing players, for example, Connolly in particular is a player that left a year ago, no real replacement coming for him in that time, and they just seem like they have really not the team they was just over a year ago, which is a shame. But they do seem to be in a bit of a... Financially, I do think there might be a few problems there with the fact that they selling on players and not really getting in major replacements, but I think they'll do enough to survive. 18th place, I put Doncaster. Doncaster again, I think another one that I think is quite hard to place because last season were quite inconsistent. But it was their first season back in in League One last season. It took them a while to get back up, and to start with, it really wasn't going well. It looked like it was going to go back down, but they form did improve in the second half of the season. They ended up pulling clear in the end and actually finishing very strong. So I think they'll carry some momentum into this season. I'm not sure how it's going to go. I'm not fully convinced. I think they'll be all right. I don't think they'll have any issues. I think they'll be comfortable in the division. I'm just not quite sure how much they're going to push on. Defensively, last season was a downfall. They conceded quite a lot of goals. I don't think they'll have an issue scoring goals, but I do think they'll need to tighten up at the back. I think good goal scoring options in the team, though. Grant McCann is, of course, good manager at this level, won the league with Hull in 2021. So I think has got a lot going for him, and maybe this prediction's a bit harsh. I had to put them somewhere. I think I've gone for 18th for now, but I think they could be in the 15th to 10th range of the table. I think the potential's there. 17th, I've gone for Notts County. I think Notts County will be fine next season after coming up. I was initially thinking maybe they'll be a bit higher than this as well, closer to the top half, but then I thought, okay, I don't want to get too carried away. They have been away from this league from 9 years now, and it's obviously a higher level of football. Maybe it will take time to adapt, but I do think they're going to do quite well over the last last few days. Signed Ollie Cooper on a loan from Swansea. I think that's a good addition. I think you've got Callum Roberts returning to the club as well on a free transfer from Scunthorpe as one of the National League's top scorers last season. I think that's a transfer that could work out nicely for them. You've got another striker they signed from Dundee FC that I think could be good as well. I think they've got added some good attacking options to what they already had, and they've already got quite a lot of players that I think were quite good there already. Players like Palmer, players like Jones, and I think they've got some good attacking options. I think defensively towards the end of last season really started to tighten up as well. I think Martin Peterson as a manager, I think he was impressive last season. I think really tightened up the defence, particularly in the playoffs. Really, really impressive defensive record, not conceding the goal in that. And I think I can see why some people think maybe be a bit of a relegation battle for them. But I think they've got some good options in this team, and I think the first season back going to be a bit of a building season. But I do think they'll survive comfortably enough. So I put Notts County in 17th place. 16th place, I put Wigan. This feels like another team that could be higher, maybe being a bit harsh again, but I'm not. It's hard to be inspired based on the last couple of seasons where they've just not been good enough. I think they'll be a bit more comfortable this time around. Last season, they looked like they was going to go down, to be honest, around sort of February time. They were on a horrendous run of form, but changing management, and they was able to get themselves out of trouble. They're another team that have had financial problems over recent years. I think I think they'll be somewhere in the middle. I think they've got the potential to finish higher. But for now, I'm going 16th based on how inconsistent they've been over recent years. Now, 15th place, 15th place, I put Stevenage. Now, Stevenage last season were fantastic. I thought they were good defensively. I thought finishing in the playoffs in 6th was a very, very good finish. I think the only issue is I do think goals were a bit of an issue last season. They won a lot of games late on, a lot of 1-0 wins, a lot of and goals started to dry up a bit towards the end of the season as well. So I think that's a bit of a worry coming into this season. I think that's where I think they might drop off a bit this time round. I think they'll be absolutely fine, but I do think it'll be difficult to replicate the form from last season. I'd like to prove them wrong though. I do like Stevenage. I do feel they're a very good club, and their rebuild has been very impressive over the last sort of 6 seasons. But I do think there might be a bit of a fall off this season. Last season in the playoffs as well didn't turn up either. But so I just think goal scoring could be a bit of an issue, but I think defensively they're a solid side, so we'll wait and see how it goes, but I've gone for 15th. 14th place, I put Barnsley. Barnsley are another team that it feels like have really declined over recent seasons, and I just see them being somewhere in the middle this time around. Last time around they were just completely in the middle, never really looking like they was going to challenge the playoffs, never really looking in any danger. I think it could be a similar story this time around. I think inconsistency was the issue last season for Barnsley. I think, they would have a good run, but then they would just look like they might be getting a bit of a good run together, but then they would go on a bit of a bad run. They would just never really knew which version of them was going to turn up, and I think it could be a similar sort of thing this time around, just because they were so inconsistent last time around. I'm not sure I see them going much in either direction really. I just see them being maybe stuck somewhere in the middle, which is not what they would want. They should be doing better than this. Really, when you think about it. 13th place, I put Reading. Reading are a team that, of course, almost went completely bankrupt. So, it can take a while to rebuild at this type of situation, even though, it's been a few years, or a couple of years now, I think, since the new owners come in. They have, look at the average age of the team, they do have one of the youngest teams in the divisions. They have quite a young team, a couple more experienced players in there. I think Jack Marriott, very experienced player, is a very good player for this level they've got in there. Last season, Reading, they started so well, and a lot of the season, they was in the playoff race, but they just finished on a really bad run. They had quite a lot of defeats, and some bad defeats as well at the back end of last season, because that ended up falling away a bit. Playoff push, definitely not out of the question, definitely could do better than this, but I'm not sure. I could just see them being maybe more mid-table this time round, but we'll see. I've put Reading 13th for now. 12th place, I've put Blackpool. Blackpool, again, every year I've predicted Blackpool to do well for the last few years, of like putting them up amongst the playoffs, and they always predicted to do well, and they always seem to underwhelm, it's fair to say. But could it be different this time round? I'm not sure. I think they'll do a bit better. I think they'll maybe be heading maybe in the right direction, back in the conversation a bit, because they started really badly last season. It was in the relegation battle at one point and was able to pull away from it. I don't think they'll have quite enough for the playoffs this time round, but I think maybe a slight improvement overall, maybe a bit more of a consistent season as a whole. Now, 11th place, I put Mansfield. I really like Mansfield. I've got a feeling they're having a really good season. I think they've really established themselves now in this division. A couple of seasons now, being comfortable. I think Nigel Clough's a fantastic manager. I think he's done a fantastic job at Mansfield. And I think the way they finished last season, they finished on a club record run and the highest finish they've had. I think it was in 33 years or something like that. So I think, that speaks for itself really. A fantastic finish last season. I think they could take a lot from that. A lot of people think they might fall off a bit this time round, but I'm not so sure. I don't think they will. I think they'll finish. I think they'll be up there again. I think they'll be in the right half of the table. I think they'll be definitely comfortable, and I think a playoff push is not entirely out of the question for them. I really think that. I think a few of the loan players from last season were very good from have left, which is a bit of a blow. But I think in this transfer window they've been quite clever as well. I think Liam Thomason announced from Derby, signing from Derby, just only announced today actually. I think that's a fantastic addition for them. I really do. I think that's a player I've heard good things about, so I think that's a very good addition for Mansfield. McGoldrick coming in as well, brings some experience. Might not be at the level he was when he was at his best, but definitely could offer something still at this level. So I think they've been pretty clever this window, Mansfield as well. So I think they'll do well again. 10th place, I've put Stockport County. It's a bit of a fall off from last season. Initially I was going to go for them to just about get in the playoffs again. Now I'm not so sure. I think For me, it could be a bit of a transitional year. I think the potential's there for it to click and then to do well again, but I do think there's a few things that would worry me a bit about Stockport, which is one, I think Louis Barry is a massive loss to a direct rival as well, one of the main goal scoring threats from last season, but also losing him to Sheffield Wednesday and a direct rival is a blow. The manager leaving as well, Dave Chandler had been there years, he had been like for every step of their rebuild, like he had taken up through division, he had been there for seasons. So him leaving will leave a bit of a mark, and it will I think there will be a transitional phase just because he's been there for so long and done so many good things for the club. But I do think McNutley's a very good manager to bring in, though. Fantastic. We see what he did at Rochdale last season, taking his goalkeeper that he had on loan with him there last season as well, the Man City Academy goalkeeper. He's got him here again as well at Stockport next season. So I think you've got a good manager coming in there and a good goalkeeper that you trust as well. I just think Louis Barry's a major loss, and I think Chandler was there for so long that I think it's going to be a bit of a transitional phase. So I think naturally, I just think there might be a little bit of a drop off from last season after losing the playoff final. Ninth place now. I put MK Dons. Now MK Dons, out of all the promoted clubs, it was always obviously be the case that they would have the biggest budget out of all of them, and I think they're going to come up, and I think they're going to do well. Not quite enough for the top six, but I do think they're going to be right up there. I think in Paul Warren, you've got a fantastic manager for this level, someone who's taken Derby up, someone who's taken Rotherham up, a really, really good manager for this level, and we see what he did last season, went straight in there after a disappointing season, taking them straight up in second place through League 2 last season, straight back up after he managed to get them straight up after a couple of years of failing to go back up. He comes in, gets the job done straight away. I think coming into this season, I think they're going to do well. One of the players they have brought in is a striker from Rotherham that I think could do a job. I think they've got, there's always going to be the biggest spenders of the teams that come up. I think they're going to have a very good season after coming up MK Dons. I think they've got looks like a lot. I think a lot could go right from next season. I put them 9th place. 8th place, I put Wycombe. We're getting to the teams now that I think are really going to challenge next season. I think Wycombe are going to be right up there. I've got a feeling they're going to have a very good year. I think, if it wasn't for the fact they finished on a bit of a bad run last season, they could have got in there last season, like the previous season as well. They've been knocking on the door for a few seasons now. I think it's be very close whether they get in there or not next season. 7th place, and to be honest, this team very nearly put this team in the playoffs. It was a flip of a coin, really. It could have. This was one of the hardest calls actually, whether to put this team in the top 6 or not. But I put Oxford United in 7th place, just outside the playoffs. Come down last season, there was the highest out of the teams that have come down. Obviously, Leicester and Wednesday had the point stock though. And they had a go at surviving. They ended up falling short after a decent run, a couple of seasons run in the Championship. In the end, I like the goalkeeper, Jamie Cummings, someone who used to play for my team, Chelsea. So definitely someone I'll be looking out for next season. It's a shame they couldn't have kept hold of Matt Bloomfield, as I do feel like he would have been a very good manager to have at this level. But Aaron Ramsey going in as manager there is interesting. Could work out all right. And yeah, I do think they'll be right up there. I think they're challenge. I think they've kept a decent amount of the squad. Looking at this, I think it'll be very tight. I think they'll be up there challenging. It'll be very close whether they get in the playoffs or not. For me, next season, 6th place now into the playoff position. 6th place, I put Bradford City. Bradford City last season finished in the playoffs, ended up losing in the semi-final. Maybe a bit unfortunate in that second leg against Bolton as well. Having the goal chalks off and all of that. But coming into this season, initially I was wondering maybe I'll put them just outside the playoffs this time around, but I actually don't think I will. I actually think they've done a better job at retaining players and the manager than someone like Stockwise, for example. They seem to have need for a bit of a rebuild. I think, Bradford, Graham Alexander there as a manager, a very good manager for this level. I think I've always really liked keeper, Sam Walker. I think he's a very good keeper. He's got Srđegović, he's a player I really like as well in the midfield. I think it's a very good option to have. I think Bradford will do well this season as well, and I think based on their pre-season performances as well, I don't think they'll have an issue scoring goals. They're They've had some quite an impressive pre-season actually, including the 6-1 win at Halifax Town. I think, maybe the form dipped a bit towards the end of last season, but I think coming into this season, I think they could be quite strong again. I actually think they'll uh, get a playoff finish again. I think first season back in League One was very impressive last time round. Straight back to challenging for promotion. I think they'll could do it again this time round. Fifth place, Huddersfield Town. Now, Huddersfield have had a couple of seasons at this level since coming down from the Championship, and both times have failed to get back up. First time round was going alright, but then I remember them really falling off in the end, ended up finishing really poorly. Going into last season, most people I think thought they'd be one of the favourites, and for a lot of the season they looked like they'd be not top two, but good enough for the playoffs. But then falling away from that in the end as well, and they're going for, again, inexperienced manager, so it could go one or two ways. I just think one of the teams that's got more to spend than most in this division. They're one of the big clubs for this level. I think eventually it's got to go right for them. They've had 2 seasons now where they've not impressed at all. It's hard to be convinced based on that, but I do think this time round I'm going to go for a playoff finish. I'll put Huddersfield in 5th place. Up into 4th place now. 4th place I put Sheffield Wednesday. Now, most people have got them in the top 2, actually. A lot of people have gone top 2, bookies have gone top 2. Can see why, because of the size of the club. But I do think, as much as I think they're going to do well at this level, and I think this will be the start of the real start of the rebuilding process, I do think there could be a bit of a, psychologically, the season they had last season it might take a little bit of time to recover from, because only one win. We all know what happened last season, like 30 points deduction or whatever it was, and massive bad run. I mean, only one win in the entire season, worst ever run by an EFL team, relegated by like the start of March, whenever it was. But I think they never really had any hope last season. I think the manager that was brought in last season was brought in for this season. He was never had a chance last season. It's brought in for this season. I think because last season was so bad and it was over before it even begun, they've had a lot of time to prepare for this season. So I think they might be. So I think there's an argument that they could be very ready for this season. I think bringing Barry Bannon back didn't work out at Millwall. Coming back to this is where he belongs really, Sheffield Wednesday. I think that could be really big for him. Louis Barry's a massive signing as well. At this moment, you've still got players like Jamal Lowe in there, Liam Palmer. So I still think you've got some. So it seems like at the moment they're looking pretty strong actually, and definitely if things click, top 2 could be likely, because I do think they could finish stronger than they start. But like I say, there's the psychological factor as well. There's also the historical factor as well. They've been down to this division before, Sheffield Wednesday, and every time they've had to go for the playoffs, they quite often make it a little bit more difficult for themselves than what they have to. But I definitely think they'll be one of the front runners. They should be, at least anyway. Now, 3rd place, I put Plymouth. I've got a good feeling about them this season. I've got a feeling they might even do a little better than people expect as well. I think they'll be definitely one of the strongest sides. Think decent attacking options. Player called Oseni, who they've got, who plays up front. I think it was 12 goals and 26 appearances. Not a bad return that at all. From last season. Last season, of course, after coming down, I think a lot of people thought they'd be strong and be right up there, but the season did not get off to a good start whatsoever. There was really bad run at the start of the season, and then even at Christmas time when it looked like it might turn around a bit, never really did much. It was in the relegation battle still, but they did eventually in the second half of the season. Things clicked and they finished on a really strong run of form and finished 8th in the end. And on the final day, they needed results to go their way, and they very nearly got in the playoffs. And a couple of results gone differently, they would have. There was moments on the final day where they was in there in the top 6. And like I say, I think, but disappointing to miss out on the final day last season. But I think they'll take a lot from the way they finished last season. Things started to come together for them after a bad start. So I think they'll carry some momentum, and I think they'll. I've got a feeling they might. The way they finished last season, despite the fact that they missed out in the end, I think filled me with some confidence that they could be good next season. So I put Plymouth in 3rd place. I've got a good feeling about them this time round. I also think home advantage is key as well. I always think it's a difficult place to go to travel. It's decent atmosphere there as well. I think that could come into play for them as well. My top 2 now, 2nd place, I put Luton Town. Now, Luton last season, after coming down, a lot of people's favourites to go up, it's fair to say, and it did not go to plan. The season did not start well. They never had the consistency. And even going into the final weeks of the season, it was obvious that they would have to have a really good run to have any chance really of getting to the playoffs, even after that cup win they had against Stockport, the EFL Trophy. Now, sorry about that, change of location to finish the video, but yeah, Luton second place. Of course, when Wiltshire come in last season, towards the end of the season, really I wasn't convinced he would do well, but to be honest, form really picks up quickly, and they made a real late push for the playoffs, finished really strong, including beating Bolton on the final day. And up until the final minutes of this final day, it looked like they was going to do it, but ended up falling short in the end because of the late Stevenage goal on crazy final day. But I do think Wiltshire, they're the full season. I think they're going to do well. I think they've added some good experience in Radek Wapanzu and Nakamba. So I think, and I think, you know, the way they finished strong under Wiltshire, a bit like Plymouth as well, actually. Things started to click towards the end of last season, and last season just finished a bit too soon for them. I think they've had a season to rebuild after relegation. I think this time around they'll get it right, and I actually think they'll do enough to get in the top two. My winners though has to be Leicester City. I think I wasn't, you know, convinced it'll be plain sailing when they first come down. Now I'm looking at them and I'm thinking they're looking ridiculously strong for this level. I think they might just be a bit too big for this level. Premier League champions 10 years ago, of course. Things have changed since then. Last season was a disaster. They've had points deductions over recent years. They've had so much go wrong for them, but I do think this time round they're going to turn it round. I think they're going to come straight back. No issues, in my opinion. I think, you know, of course it's going to be a very competitive league, but I think they're looking very strong. I think the new additions for them have been very good. I think there's a lot of players that did need moving on. I think Liam Cullen, fantastic signing. Connor Chaplin, fantastic signing. Players like that. So I think, you know, overall, I think it's, you know, I think, you know, a lot of players are coming from higher divisions as well, which is key as well. And I think they've retained the players that they did want to keep around. From last season, I think they have. Quadrado, I think that's how you say it, but he's still in play for Sheffield United and Luton and stuff. Experienced player. Oliver Skip, of course. Even players that are still there, like Dukodover Reed is still there, and I think the one player who definitely would have wanted to keep hold of, one of the standout players in this division next season, Mavididi, fantastic option to have up front there as well. So I think Leicester, for me, are going to do it. I think they're going to go straight back up. Russell Martin's the manager that they've given the chance to as well. This feels like a, you know, again, I think previously in higher divisions, I think people they've signed have really bought in, you know, really buying into the project, which I think is a good sign for them as well. I think, I mean, you know, Russell Martin didn't work out at Rangers, did not work out at Southampton in the Premier League, got them up really well, but then did not work out in the Premier League. I do feel like for this level, though, I think they've got a very good manager, and I think he might get it right next season. So that's what I'm going for there. Let me know your thoughts on this. Of course, this is just my opinion. I'd be interested to know as well if you support any of these clubs and you think I put your club too low. Please let me know. I'll be interested to hear everyone's thoughts. But that's my opinion for now. That's my prediction. Thanks everyone for watching. If you have watched to this point, thank you very much. Again, see you in the next one.